Going unseen is a huge part of wildlife photography. It can be the difference between getting your dream shot or missing it altogether. In this week's video, I'm going to cover a few different types of camouflage you can use in trying to be undetected by wildlife, and some of the things I've learned over the years that have helped me to get a lot of the pictures that I have. This is especially applicable for backcountry wildlife, which is what I tend to photograph more. This is something I'm very passionate about, getting up close and personal with the animals, many times without them even knowing that I'm there. I'm very excited for this video, and I'm excited to share a lot of the information and knowledge that I've learned over the years. First type of camouflage that I wanted to talk about is something you probably don't even consider as camouflage. It's something so simple, something you probably already own, but it can be very, very effective depending on how you use it, especially if you use it in conjunction with some of the tips that I'm going to cover later in this video. And what I'm referring to is your natural, everyday clothing that you wear. And yes, I do wear these clothes every day, even when I'm not out in nature. You'll see in a lot of my videos though, I wear a lot of greens, I wear a lot of browns, I wear a lot of grays, and the reason I do this when I go out in nature is it blends in very well to the environments, to the terrain that I spend a lot of my time in photographing and exploring. And as I move through a landscape, I want to go as unnoticed as possible. I want to blend into my surroundings as much as possible. I don't want to be a beacon for all the animals to see right away. So I wear a lot of these colors that will blend in very naturally to my surroundings. And this leads me to a couple of the tips that I wanted to talk about, and this applies to this form of, camouflage and the other types of camouflage that I'm going to talk about in this video. This leads me to the first tip that I wanted to cover in this video. One thing that you really want to do anytime you're trying to get close to wildlife or remain hidden from wildlife is you want to break up your outline. Animals are very good at distinguishing the human outline, at picking that out, and as soon as they know you're there, they're going to be wary. Their behavior is not going to be natural anymore. So any way you can break up your outline is going to increase your chances of getting closer to that animal, of remaining hidden from that animal. So one thing you can do is use the vegetation in the area that you have. So if I'm hiking through the forest and I'm just in my natural everyday clothes, I'm still going to stand out. Even though these colors blend in pretty well with the environment that I'm in, I'm still going to stand out to these animals passing through. So if I know there's an animal coming, or if I know I'm in an area that's frequented by different animals, I can break up my outline by using the vegetation. So for instance, if I knew, deer were moving through this area, I just saw two right back here, which is why I use them as an example. I've got this little pocket in the trees right here. So I can hunker down in the trees. It breaks up my outline. My colors blend in more naturally to the surrounding, and you just remain a lot more hidden. So I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. I'm not perfectly hidden here, but something as simple as breaking up your outline, wearing these colors that blend in a little bit more naturally to your surroundings. Something as simple as this can greatly increase your chances of getting closer to that animal, remaining hidden from that animal. So these are very simple things that you can do to hopefully get the picture that you're after, or if you're just out here to watch and look at the animals, this is something very simple that you can do to increase those chances. Next form of camouflage that I wanted to talk about is an actual camo pattern that you can get, whether it's online at a local store. You can buy your own fabric and make your own clothing and gear. I picked this up at a local store. The pattern is called Desert Shadow. The reason I picked out this pattern is it's got sagebrush on it, and that's a plant that is in most of the terrain that I spend time in. So it's always good when you're picking out a pattern to get one that will blend in well with whatever terrain you're hoping to spend time in. That being said, I'm in a pine and aspen forest right now. There's no sagebrush out here. I can still make this pattern work in just about any terrain that I spend time in, especially if you're doing some of these tips that I've already mentioned and will be talking about here. You can get almost any camo pattern to work in almost any terrain that you're in. So like I mentioned before, you want to break up your outline. The camo helps do that a little bit, but you still want to use the vegetation to help break up your outline a little bit. Next thing that I wanted to talk about, next tip that I wanted to talk about, is you want to utilize the shadows as much as possible. An example of why you want to do that, this top that I'm wearing, it's got a little bit of a sheen to it, so anytime I'm in really bright sunlight, it pops just a little bit more than my pants, than the surrounding vegetation. So if I'm in some bright highlight of sun, this top's going to just stand out a little bit more than everything else around me, and animals will pick that out real quick. Also, your skin. You know, I'm a pretty fair-skinned fellow, and once that sun hits my skin, it stands out pretty obviously. So any animals coming through the area, even if I'm hunkered down, if I'm not utilizing those shadows, even if I've broken up my outline, they're going to pick out my face and my hands, any exposed skin that I've got. They'll pick that out pretty fast. So unless you want to go full Arnold Schwarzenegger Predator style and rub mud all over yourself, or you know, get some sort of camo face covering, something like that, utilize those shadows as much as possible. I've got a great example here of how I'm going to use the shadows. As you can see right now, my face incredibly highlighted. So this area behind me, if I were to hunker down right back here, and I'll show you, you'll see how visible I am versus right back here, you know, literally like 8 feet away. I've got this shadowy patch, and you'll see how hidden I stay there. So I'll start off here in the sunny patch, and again, super highlighted right now, my face and skin. You know, if I had an animal coming through, even if I'm using the plants to break up my outline a little bit, still I am very highlighted, even my pants highlighted. You can see the sheen on this, very highlighted. But if I move over 8 feet, maybe 10 feet, I don't know. You know, all of a sudden you can see how much more hidden you are. And if I was expecting an animal to actually come through, I would hunker back down even further into these shadows and, you know, wait there. But shadows, breaking up your outline, incredibly increases your chances of getting that picture. The last form of camouflage that I wanted to talk about is called a ghillie suit or a ghillie blanket. The purpose of these suits or blankets is to break up your outline, give the sense of there being false vegetation somewhere, or vegetation somewhere. You can pick these up at the store. Online, you can make your own. I actually made this one, and it works extremely well. What I did was I got an old fishing net and a bunch of burlap, and I took the burlap apart, dyed it into different colors, and attached it to the old fishing net. So it's essentially a bunch of false vegetation, false grass, or you know, leaves, whatever, and it works extremely well. Let me show you a little closer what it looks like. So again, all this is a blanket or a suit designed to break up your appearance, break up your outline a little bit, and it's designed to give the appearance of just being vegetation, something that the animals are used to. So you can use it, I recommend it in conjunction with your camo that you have, just because you can see through it at some points. But it's a very, very useful tool. I photographed so many species with this within, I mean, 20, 30 feet, and they didn't even know that I was there. So it's very useful. I've got a hat that I use as well with it occasionally, just because it's easier to turn your head, but sometimes you can just kind of drape it over your head. I know it seems kind of silly, but it works so well, and honestly, I don't care what people think because I'm able to get my pictures with it. So great tool to add, just awesome thing to have. There are a couple reasons why I wanted to make mine instead of just purchase one. One of the main reasons being it was so much cheaper to make my own. Yeah, it took a lot of time, but this was something I just made in the evenings when I was at home, you know, just chatting with my family. I was able to put it together and yeah, do it on my free time, which was really nice. Another reason being a lot of the ones that you buy online, the blankets are pretty small, and the suits that you can get online are just that. It's just a suit. I wanted a blanket that I could put over myself, over my camera, over my tripod, all my stuff, and this thing is huge and it's able to do that. The main reason though that I wanted to make my own rather than purchase one is a lot of these that you purchase online are made of synthetic materials. They do break down and fall apart over time, and you become a walking litter machine. And I don't mean that as an offense to anybody who has one made out of synthetic material. You know, they work great, just make sure you're taking care of it and you're not leaving a trail of litter behind you. This, though, I was able to make it out of completely natural materials, so if it does start to break down and fall apart, I'm not leaving, you know, a bunch of litter behind me. That would defeat the whole purpose of why I'm out here in nature. Like I say, though, great item to have. I highly recommend it. If you do use one, you want to use it much like you do a blind, which I'll talk about in a future video, and I've talked about them before in previous videos as well. But you want to get into position generally first and then put it on. If you're just walking around with this on, you can do so very stealthily, but if an animal sees you walking around in this, they're going to be alerted that there's a walking bush, you know, stalking them or in the area, and they might feel uncomfortable. So whenever I use mine, I try to get into position first and then I put it on. Just another tip for you. Last tip that I wanted to leave with you guys today is just to slow down, slow your movements down. Even if you've done everything else that I've recommended in this video, if you're sitting there looking around like this, animals are going to pick up on that and they're going to leave. Even animals with very poor eyesight, their vision can be very acute when it comes to movement. So instead of, you know, looking around all sporadically and crazy, slow your movements down. Scan more with your eyes than you do with your neck, just to minimize those movements. When you go to lift up your camera when something's happening in front of you, instead of just lifting quickly and shooting, animals are going to see that. They're going to take off. Go very slowly, and you'll get more pictures that way. I hope you've enjoyed this week's video. As I mentioned before, this is something I'm totally passionate about. I love photographing backcountry wildlife, and this is one of the best methods that I've found to do so. And it's a great way just to immerse yourself in nature, and as cheesy as it sounds, just to be one with nature. So I hope you've learned something in this video. I hope it's been helpful for you. Again, these are things that I practice regularly. I'm always looking to enhance my camouflage and try new methods of remaining hidden from the animals that I photograph. And I've had a lot of success over the years photographing and getting video footage of different animals without them even knowing that I'm there, using these methods or, you know, the different forms of camouflage that I've talked about. So I'll put some clips at the end of this video of some of those encounters that I've had with those animals, and just so it's not a completely boring video for you of me talking, I'll throw some footage of some animals at the end here. If there's something that I've missed, which I know there is because I've still got so much to learn, please let me know in the comments. I've just touched on going about unseen in this video. I haven't even touched on scent or stalking through the woods, anything like that. If that's something you're interested in, I'd be happy to do a future video on that stuff as well. But again, if there's something I've missed about just going around unseen, undetected from the animals while you photograph them, please let me know in the comments. I'm always looking to learn more, and I know a lot of the viewers go through those comments and try to learn more that way as well. Thank you so much, you guys, for the support. I greatly appreciate it. This is a topic that I've gotten a lot of comments and questions on. I've gotten a lot of direct messages on, emails, different stuff like that. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I've touched previously on using blinds and stuff like that in photography. That's another topic I get a lot of questions on, and I've never touched on the camouflage portion. So again, I hope this has been helpful. Thank you so much to you guys for the support. I'll be back out with another video next week, and until then, have a great week, and we'll see ya. Oh, my knees.